Hi guys, welcome back to another Hugh video. In this video, we're going to be repairing this Google Pixel 4. Currently the display is shattered and the whole screen is flickering and glitching out as a result to damage to the OLED screen. Oddly, the damage to the OLED is nowhere near the broken glass, but rather at the top section of the screen. This phone was purchased for $168 in its current condition. Included was the phone and a generic USB-C cable. With the phone powered up, you can see it still works, but it's difficult to use as of the damage sustained to the screen. The top portion flickers badly and often glitches or gets stuck displaying certain parts of the screen. While all that damage to the screen, the remainder of the phone is in absolutely immaculate condition, and that includes both the back panel and frame of the phone. So the only thing we'll need to be replacing is the front OLED display panel. But before we get started, I'd like to thank iFixit for sponsoring this video. Get parts, tools, and guides at ifixit.com/HughJeffries or at the link in the description. To begin the repair, the back of the phone will need to be heated up. For this, I'll be using a heat plate, but other methods such as a heat gun can be used. After several minutes, I can remove the phone and begin opening the Pixel 4. Using a suction cup, I can apply upward force to the back. If the phone is hot enough, a gap should appear to which a plastic pick can be inserted and worked around the perimeter. While the adhesive is only applied on the edges, it's important not to insert the pick too far inside the phone, as a large portion of the components are exposed. While the back is now loose, it still cannot be removed, as there is one cable connecting it to the motherboard. Before proceeding to disconnect that cable, I'll first unplug the battery. It's connected under this metal shield that is secured with several Torx screws of different lengths. It's always important to use the proper tools such as a spudger for disconnecting the battery. Using your fingernail, you can rip off tiny components around the connector, causing issues with the device. Up at the top, there is a bracket which we can remove to gain access to the actual connection for the flex cable running to our back panel. With the bracket out of place, we can unplug the flex cable and remove the back panel from the phone. With our first good look inside the Pixel 4, it has a very iPhone vibe going on. There was no plastic pieces protecting the board, which means the wireless charging module is glued to the back glass. The battery, which is manufactured by a company who makes some of the iPhone batteries, is held down with pull tab adhesive, which is an advantage to many of the other phones on the market. Proceeding at the top of the phone, I'll remove the camera assembly to avoid it being damaged in the display replacement process. At this point, I will also unplug the display's connection. Coming back to the heat plate, we can repeat the same process we did for the back to the display of the phone. It's important to prevent any loose connections from damaging anything on the board while working on removing the display. In my case, I taped the battery connector back and left the display cable hanging out the side. While heating the display will soften the adhesive, it doesn't fix Google's method of adhering the screen. There is really no practical way of removing it in one piece. The screen is heavily glued in the center, so when you lift up on it, it gives way at the weakest point, which is the internal layers of the screen. I've removed about 5 Google Pixel screens and they've all came up this way. However, in some of the Pixel A models I've repaired, not only was the screen the first thing to come out, but it was only glued around the edges, proving this method here is total overkill. With the screen removed, we can see all of the damage. It's clear to say this screen is not going to turn on again. Before throwing out the old display, I'll first need to harvest the earpiece mesh. This will later be installed in the new display. Speaking of displays, it's time to unpack our new one. iFixit has sent across one of their fix kits for the Pixel 4. This kit includes everything needed for the repair, including iFixit's own tools. Based on previous fixes, I found the eye opener tool to be of no use, as it just doesn't get hot enough. However, the remaining tools are loads better than those included with most replacement parts. Taking the screen out, we now have everything needed to fix the phone. To prep the screen for installation, I'll install the earpiece mesh and remove all the plastic protective films. Back inside the phone, I'll move this antenna wire out of the way of the hole used for the display's cable, just to make installation easier. Before we can attach our new screen, I'll need to clean up the frame to remove all of the old residue from the adhesive and any remaining shards of glass. This is a vital step to make sure the adhesive sticks and the display sits flush. For replacement adhesive, I'll be using my usual red tape. While some adhesive was provided, I feel more confident using this, as I know it will keep the display in place. This is especially important as the display cannot be removed without destroying it, meaning we only have one attempt. As the top and bottom sections are very thin, I'll be using liquid adhesive in those areas. With all that adhesive applied, it's time to attach the display. I'll first feed the display's cable through the frame and then make sure all of the corners are lined up before pressing it down into place. I will then apply some rubber bands that will hold the display in place while the liquid adhesive cures. I will also reconnect the antenna cable, the new display, and finally the battery so we can test out the phone. Pressing and holding that power button, you can see our new display is working as expected. Now I'll leave the phone for several hours while that glue cures. Afterwards, I can come back, remove the rubber bands and disconnect the battery. From here, I can continue by reassembling all of the components back into our Pixel 4. After reattaching the front cameras and sensors, this Pixel 4 is coming together nicely. It's time to reattach the back panel. To do this, I'll need to clean off the edges of the frame, as well as the back panel itself. There's plenty of adhesive left behind, which we can scrape off with a plastic spudger. With both halves nice and clean, I can reattach the flex cable going to the back panel, as well as the battery connection. From here, there are two brackets that need to be fastened back into place using the several Torx screws. Unlike many Android phones, these screws are varying in their length, so it's important to keep track of them and install them in their correct position whilst reassembling. Before we glue everything up, it's time to give the phone one last test. You don't want to stick everything back together only to find out there's something you forgot to connect. For adhesive, again I'll use both tape and liquid types. While I always prefer tape, the edges on the frame are so thin it doesn't fit. Again, I'll be using what I know will work. I always try to avoid liquid glue on important components like screens, but sometimes it's just unavoidable, and this is one of those cases. However, given enough time to cure, it should be adequate for the job. This type of adhesive is impractical as it takes up to 24 hours to cure. If shortcuts are taken, parts can lift out of place. As for our back panel, we can press it down into place and secure it for 24 hours with some rubber bands. After it's cured, we can come back and remove the rubber bands. You can see that there is a lot of glue residue that has seeped out the sides, which we'll need to clean off. Luckily though, this glue is very rubberized and it comes off quite easily. After that's completed, we can remove the plastic protective film from our new display, and we're done. So this is it. This Google Pixel 4 is back up and running again with its new display. Overall, the phone is in excellent condition, but is no longer water resistant. If the proper pre-cut adhesive was used, it likely would be. However, I couldn't find any of that adhesive for the Pixel 4 online. That being said, water resistance is a preventative measure, not so you can take photos underwater. The most important thing is we saved this phone from landfill. Now, with its working screen, it can live on in the hands of a new owner. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and consider checking out the phone restoration playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you're looking for any used devices, be sure to check out my online store, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.